You're listening to Blue Collar CEO, the podcast that's all about helping you build a better, more profitable, and more sustainable home service business. Each week, we'll cover a different topic that will help enable your company to move forward to success. And here's your host, Ryan Redding.
What is up, Blue Collar CEOs? It is Ryan, and it is great to be with you today. We're going to be talking today about the Inflation Reduction Act, and I'm going to introduce you to Cynthia Williams. Cynthia is the CEO and co-founder of Pearl Certification. They're a vertical SaaS firm that's software as a service for those outside of tech world that provides investment-grade data on a home's performance features to increase its value in the refinance or real estate transaction. She's also the co-founder of the Virginia Energy Efficiency Council and a 20-year veteran in energy efficiency and green construction. She was voted in 2020 Entrepreneur of the Year by Charlottesville Business Innovation Council, and she also has the 2018 winner of the Lyndon Windington Leadership Award from the Building Performance Association. This lady is incredibly smart about everything you need to know to prepare for the Inflation Reduction Act. Let's hop on it. Cynthia, thank you so much for taking the time to stop and talk with us today from your home in beautiful Durango, Colorado. I'm really excited to get into the conversation, but I guess first, for those who don't know who you are yet, let's just maybe start there. Who are you? What do you do?
Well, Ryan, thank you again for having me here on your podcast today. It is a real pleasure. I have an interesting background. I've worked for over 25 years doing various activities tied to the residential built environment. I've worked as a general contractor. In that capacity, I've tiled many things. I've had a nail bounce off my head while on a roof one time, like all of the usual
that sounds like a story.
Fun stuff.
Was it thrown or shot?
No, it
How
was
did
a
this
nail gun.
Find your head.
It ricocheted off a knot from some decking we were putting on the roof. So, yeah, that was a good time. But anyway, moving on from there, when the market crashed in 2008, I did a sideways career maneuver from the consulting, construction, and design, build, retail showroom businesses that we had in place, because of course everything went belly up at that time. And I ended up running residential and commercial energy efficiency and renewable energy programs, at first working in the city of Charlottesville, Virginia, and then working in partnership with the state, the U.S. Department of Energy, and some other energy-related organizations, and with a real focus on how we scale these types of improvements, how we accelerate the energy transition. And anyway, that was what led me to Pearl, which is where I am today. And with Pearl Certification, the goal really is to help high-performing homes sell and appraise for more, and in providing this sort of market-based mechanism for homes to be worth more, that perform better, the contractors that do the installations in these homes also get a real benefit. They're able to charge what their jobs are worth. They're able to be able to expand their business into new lines of revenue. And of course, with the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a whole bunch of rebates and other opportunities available to them to make the scaling of their business in these different ways work better, faster. I don't say easier because they're government programs, so who knows about that?
Government doesn't do anything easier. But okay, so you mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act, and I feel like by now, and some people have heard a lot, but I think a lot of people have heard a little about what this means for homeowners, what's available. So tell us, I guess, quickly, what is the Inflation Reduction Act in the most non-political way possible, let's say?
Well, it's a piece of legislation that was passed on August 16th in 2022. And in it, there are a number of provisions that are meant to accelerate the adoption of energy efficient and renewable technologies in residential multifamily types of buildings. There are also other types of incentives for utility scale and commercial type projects with renewable energy, for example. So there's a lot of things in there that are meant to, like I say, accelerate the energy transition. And some of it piggybacks off of the infrastructure bill, which was passed previously. And that too has a number of provisions that could bring advantages to states and localities that want to scale their high performing homes. The main component of that, insofar as most contractors are concerned, is tax credits, or I should say our tax credits and rebates. The tax credits went into effect 2023. There were some credits from 22 that were expanded, but there are new ones that came into play in 23 that are more lucrative, if you will, from a homeowner's perspective. And then there are 2 rebate programs in specific that contractors should be aware of. One of them is I call it the electrification rebate program. It has a complicated name with a funny sounding acronym called HERA, but the electrification has specific rebates for specific installations. It also has income requirements for a homeowner to even be able to access those rebates. That's $4.5 billion of incentive money for those rebates. The second rebate program is called HOMES, which is an acronym, and that program operates differently. You don't have to have an income requirement to access the rebates. You have to meet a modeling threshold, though, a modeling threshold of projected energy savings from that installation. And if you meet that threshold, the initial cutoff point is 20% for modeled savings. There's a $2,000 rebate. If you're 35% and up, it's $4,000 for that percentage of modeled savings. And there's a lot more details that I'm not going into just at this moment, including like how the programs roll out and what specifically qualifies for them. But high level, there's clean energy tax credits, there's energy efficiency tax credits, and then there are these 2 rebate programs, one of which targets more the low to moderate income, and that's the electrification rebate program, and the other is more of a whole house focus.
So anytime I feel like the federal government gets involved with like program solutions, sometimes understanding and navigating those solutions can feel overwhelming. Anyone who's had to deal with like any sort of bureaucratic sort of system probably knows that stress. And so even words like, hey, there's rebates, we have income profiles that you got to be able to hit and blah, blah, blah. It can just feel like information overload, and it's really difficult for customers to turn their brain on to understand why it's helpful for them, or what's at least the money that's set aside and on the table. Is the government doing anything proactively, to your knowledge, to help get this information out to consumers in a way that actually helps them make choices? Or is this program essentially relying on people in the trades to understand that these rebates exist and communicate the average consumer on them at their time of need? Like how is this information in general getting out to the general public? Do you know?
I do. And I would say it's ultimately when the programs launch, it's going to be a little bit of both. So if I were a contractor today and I did windows and doors, insulation, HVAC, or anything in renewables, I'd want to be aware right now of the tax credits that either were expanded or added for 2023. Because whether I'm talking to my customer about them or not, my TurboTax and my tax accountant and other types of messaging is going to be coming at their customer next year. And so their customer then is going to be coming back to the contractor saying, hey, do I need documentation for this? Do I need documentation for that? Did you install this type of equipment? So if I were a contractor, I'd wrap my brain around what these tax credits are now. I would have an FAQ for them up on my website. I would be tracking my installs just so that, come April of 2024, I'm not getting slammed in my customer service department with a whole bunch of requests from homeowners that are trying to get their taxes done and think that I have something to contribute to that. So that's a piece of advice. Number one, tax credits, they're here now. Whether you talk about them or not, your customer's likely to hear about them. So that's one piece of information I would share out.
That's actually a really, really good point, because I don't think I would think about that, right? To like, at certain times of the year, those CPAs and accountants, bookkeepers, whoever is going to be starting to throw this out. And I never would have thought about it from that perspective. Okay, you said that was tip number 1. What's tip number 2? How many other tips do you have up your sleeve?
Oh, I hope a lot. We at my company, we're fairly embroiled in the feedback to the U.S. Department of Energy and to state energy offices on how these programs can roll out successively for contractors, because we have a contractor network. Contractors pay a SaaS fee to be able to third-party certify through us their installations. And we want to ensure that our customers can grow from this type of opportunity, can grow their businesses from it, and aren't stymied, or we don't see like a big distortion in the market as a result of these federal programs. So I hope I have more tips, but the part I would tell you about next, in answer to your question, is how is this information getting out there? Right now, there are different publications I've noticed that are starting to talk about it. Like the Washington Post ran a story, the New York Times ran a story. And of course, when IRA passed, there was a whole lot of press around it and about some of the provisions in it. So the consumers have been calling up their state energy offices and talking to contractors about it. And I know some contractors are concerned that people are putting off doing work because they're waiting for the rebates to come, because the rebate programs haven't launched yet. A couple of things to know about that. The U.S. Department of Energy has to issue guidelines to the states for how these programs should be structured. Are there any like requirements associated with them, whether that's contractor credentials or the types of equipment that could be installed, or what modeling software people are allowed to use, et cetera. So the DOE is in the process right now of, they issued a request for information. Companies like mine are responding to that. That's due on the beginning of March. They have promised that sometime between April and May, they should be able to get administrative funds out to the states to start hiring up to manage these programs, and then also to issue some guidelines. So it's not a given that every state will take their allocation of money, and that allocation is based on population size. You have to apply to it. You have to apply to the DOE with a program, and then you get approved, and then the money comes to the state, and then the state administers these rebate programs. So for the contractor, I think question number 1 is, does your state plan to participate in one or both of these rebate programs? If they do plan to participate, then they have to get their plan approved by the DOE before August 16th, 2024. They have 2 years to get their programs approved. And if they don't submit it by that time, then their state's allocation will go to somebody else. It'll get divvied up amongst the states that did apply. So step 1 for a contractor is understand whether or not your state plans to participate. If they do, and you have opinions about how that program should roll, I suggest you talk to your state energy office, the U.S. Department of Energy, or if you belong to a trade group like ACA or EGIA or something like that, they're also involved in these conversations. But you should make your voice
those are
known. Great
groups. Like, yeah, I agree. I think, and you point out ACA, but there's also like some state specifics that are kind of branched off, like MEPO in Oklahoma. They do this advocacy work with the state government level. Like, they're fantastic organizations to be a part of for things like this.
100%. And now's the time, before the rules are written, before the programs are implemented. Now's the time to make your voice and your opinion about some of this known. But when the programs are ready to launch, we do expect that the states and whatever partners they've designated, it could be utilities, it could be that they subgrant out to larger metro areas, the ability to manage things within their own jurisdiction. It's a little unclear how the funds are ultimately going to flow, but we do expect there to be marketing for these programs. We do expect that the states will shoulder some of that. What would be to the contractor's advantage is to be able to leverage that marketing, when they do have that kitchen table conversation with the homeowner, and to be able to point to the fact that, yes, I've been qualified to participate in this program. I can bring you this additional rebate benefit that will help you afford a better performing, higher efficiency, whatever system.
It totally does position the contractor as not only credible and trustworthy because they're looking out for the customer's interest, but a contractor who's on like the cutting edge of the latest government conversations, the way funds are coming out for rebates, for instance, it makes them look highly credible. Like, because now all of a sudden they're not, well, I don't know anything about that. I don't know. Someone else has told me about it too. I haven't had a chance to look it up. Those things kind of devalue the customers, how they perceive confidence in you, right? Like you're going to look less smart, less capable, even if it has nothing to do with how well you turn a wrench that day.
Absolutely. Just to underscore that, I gave a webinar not too long ago for a business, and I happened to meet a contractor at a conference who had listened to that webinar, and he said, that it really helped me to get up to speed. And I actually had a customer that was asking about it, and there were things that I could share with him that I knew, and part of what I could share with him is what nobody knows just yet. And here's sort of a timeline for when we expect to know, and et cetera. And he said, it really moved the conversation forward. I felt like it made me appear as more of a trusted advocate for my customer. So yeah, I just want to back up what you're saying. I've already heard from, one or more companies in the field that the ability to speak knowledgeably about that with whatever limited understanding we have of how these programs are going to operate right now is still better than nothing.
I appreciate how you're talking about the federal programming with as much clarity as you possibly can. And also saying there is a whole lot we don't know yet. So we'll find out.
Yeah. I
Maybe
mean,
one day.
The legislation has a fair amount written into it about what, and what ultimately will be required. I think that the question marks are, is the state going to provide a portal for income qualification so that, nobody wants contractors asking their customers for their tax returns? Like, that's crazy. So what is the technology solution or the software solution for that electrification?
Yeah, what is the mechanism with how those things happen?
Right, that lifts the burden off of the contractor. And if some of these rebates are supposed to be point of sale, okay, so how quickly can we get those contractors reimbursed? Because no one wants to be a bank. People got other things to do with their money, especially small businesses. So those are the things that are being worked out right now. The DOE wants to come to the states, I think, with some solid solutions, and even a defined group of vendors that can that can deal with certain issues that the legislation has posed, making it easier for contractors and for homeowners, frankly, to take advantage of it.
Is there one central resource that you would recommend for contractors to learn more about either the Inflation Reduction Act as a whole or their state's level participation? Is there one resource that kind of holds all that information handy so that it's easy to navigate and get what they need?
Yeah, the U.S. Department of Energy has an FAQ out right now, and for contractors and for homeowners. And if you Google IRA rebate program, US DOE, you'll probably pull it up. In fact, I may even have it pulled up somewhere on my computer. But I don't know if you share this out with people later, but I could share a link. It's not hard to find. And the FAQ they're adding to it, they update it, and you could send your customer to that. You could crib a bunch of information from it, post it on your own website. You could create a PDF, hand it to your homeowner if they're asking about it. But that's where I would send somebody. Go to the source. The source is going to be the DOE at this point, because they're the ones in whose trust the next steps for the rollout lies. And it's really in getting the guidelines together.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I did find it, like when you were explaining what it was, I did find the link. I'll make sure it's in the show notes. So anyone listening right now, go on there. I love how you're attributing to the direct source. So no middleman, no one with like any sort of competing interest involved. This is taking you directly to the DOE. So this is the energy.gov site. We'll put in the show notes. Cynthia, thank you so much for taking time to stop by and kind of clear up some of the confusion, because it's obviously complicated, and helping really gracefully point contractors to resources that they can use to help their customers save money and also move the needle on having like a lower carbon emissions footprint, help all the things that the government's trying to do with this program. Seriously, thanks for taking the time to stop by.
Happy to do it. And, maybe we'll pop my head in again in a few months from now when the crystal ball is clearer. Thank you.
Oh, that's a good idea. We'll do like a part 2 and see like How right was everyone? It's like one of the popular mechanics magazines in the 40s. That's what we'll be doing.
Sounds good. Happy to come back with whatever intelligence I have at that time.
That'd be awesome. Good meeting you.
Thank you.
This episode was hosted by Ryan Redding, author of the book on digital marketing for plumbing and HVAC contractors, and founder of Levergy, the digital marketing solution for serious home service companies. You can subscribe to Blue Collar CEO on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit us online at bluecollar.ceo and find us on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another awesome episode. See you soon.